Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today we're going to see if I am a good fatty or bad fatty according to Fierce Fatty. So you guys were suggesting Fierce Fatty in the comments, and I decided to go with it. Now I will say I have already started it, and Vinny was going on and on about nothing for 6 minutes. So I'm hoping that I went far enough to get to a point where there's going to be something, but I'm thinking that it is part of a fat acceptance podcast requirement to talk about nothing for as long as possible in the beginning. So I tried to cut out some of that, but let's continue.
Word wrong. So anyway, I left a comment saying, "Oh, that word should say this, not
Or should I say, let's begin?"
that." Anyway, life is so hard. I'm being facetious, by the way. Life is, yeah. Anyway, whatever. Life's not hard because I used the incorrect word one time. It's hard for other reasons. So I wanted to give you a few definitions before we get into this. What we're talking about is a good fatty, bad fatty archetype.
I made it.
The dichotomy,
Oops.
the tropes. I want to give you the quick definition
I'm a
of
failure.
those few words in case you're not very familiar with them. So archetype means a very typical example of a certain person or thing. Trope is kind of similar. There's two definitions to trope. The one that we're concerned with is a common or overused theme.
So I guess we're in literature class since FA is fiction.
Or device, a cliche. So a cliche would be women are emotional, even though it's men that's emotional from what we've seen, right? Women are too emotional, or fat people just eat donuts and sit at home and cry into their donuts because they're sad and fat. And
in literature, a cliche is something like, or even in like a horror movie. I've been watching a lot of horror movies with Eric lately, and the horrors always die. That is a trope or a cliche every time. So that's what I would say is a cliche. That is cliche.
And the next word is dichotomy. A dichotomy is a division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different.
This is giving me like university PTSD of being in like an English class and being bored out of my mind. Like I am like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in class. Oh, that is not a flashback I wanted.
So let me read that again. A division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different. So the contrast between, I don't know, night and day, you know. But it wouldn't be used as that. It'd be used as what we're talking about today, between, you know, good and bad, evil and what's the opposite of evil? Saintly, godly. I don't know.
Good.
You know, I wonder how many times people are like shouting at their device that they're listening to, being like, "That's the word you're trying to think of, Victoria," because sometimes I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say. Well, I was listening to this podcast the other day about. It's called Duped. It's really good. If you're in the online business world, go and listen to it. It's from Maggie Patterson and her co-host, Dr. Michelle. I can't remember her last name. Anyway, they talk about the scams that are on the online business world and all of the unethical things that go on.
You mean like fat acceptance? No way. Is that one of their topics?
And Dr. Michelle had lived in the UK for a while and was talking about a UK paper that has the tits. So I think they've stopped it now, but there's a couple of them, paper, that on page 3 would have naked women. So they'd have the breasts, not vulvas, just breasts. Only the breasts. Just fucking, can you imagine? Creepy as shit. What if in a newspaper? So Dr. Michelle was saying, oh yeah, the newspaper, it's called the Daily, I think it's called the Daily Mail is what she said. And I was like,
10 minutes in, we haven't gotten on topic. I just want you to know, 10 minutes. I cut out half of this. She went on like an unhinged rant, went on an unhinged rant about all their tabs that were open. And we had to hear about all their internet tabs because that is so important.
Like, it's the Sun. And she's like, yeah, I think it's the Daily Mail. And I was like, it's the Sun. And it's just like a little thing. I didn't want to like send them an email being like, excuse me, on episode this at they're saying you said it was the Daily Mail, but it's actually the Sun or the Star. It's not the Daily Mail, even though the Daily Mail is super trashy, but they don't have tits. But, you know, I wonder how many people do that with my podcast, being like, excuse me, but they don't want to send in a correction. You can send in corrections. That's cool. That's cool. If I say, oh, yeah, you know, that American thing, you know, whatever, or a Canadian thing, and I don't know what I'm talking about, or anything else where I don't know what I'm talking about, feel free to correct me. That's okay.
Will do. Definitely will do.
Okay, so let's talk about this. I'm going to read out I actually turned it into a blog post because it was not that much text, but you know, enough text that you know, on Instagram you put in, there's an option to put in alt text. Alt text is a text that will appear with the image for people who are visually impaired or blind, so they can tap on it and then there'll be text to say what the thing is. Anyway, so it was too much to put in alt text, so I just made it into a blog post. Anyway, so it's called the good fatty versus bad fatty false dichotomy. So what is that? This is from me, quoting myself. This is a harmful stereotyping of fat people as good or bad, depending on a number of factors. Often, good fat people have increased privilege in society as they are seen as more palatable.
Okay, let's see. So we should see, right? Which one am I? Let's see.
Bad fatties being the opposite. When someone doesn't fit into the good fatty archetypes, then that is given as a reason why they deserve abuse, lack of healthcare, bigotry.
My question is, don't fat acceptance activists also have their own categories for good and bad fat people? So is yours somehow superior or what? And if so, why? I have said this many times when I cover fat acceptance. One of the biggest and easiest ways to catch them is to point out the fact that they are some of the most judgmental, moralistic, moralizing, black and white thinking people ever. And they think that if they can point to someone else who is the same way, that they're inherently better because they called someone else out. But I can see that you're probably worse, fat activist, not better. So why the hell would I listen to you?
Etc. Often, good fatty, bad fatty behaviors are unintentional or include unearned privileges. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong or right if you engage in one thing or another. Understanding how we perceive fat bodies can help us unlearn fat phobia and examine our biases. So, what is the quote-unquote
But wouldn't a bias be inherently bad by your logic? So, isn't it right or wrong if you act a certain way? This is another thing that they do a lot. They use manipulative language to try to tell you. It's basically gaslighting, or it's being very shifty. Like they'll say one thing in one sentence and then contradict it completely in the next, because they speak a lot in inferences and they speak a lot in implication, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And it's emotional inferences. And so when you hear biased, you automatically most people, especially with fat acceptance leanings, they'll feel like, there's like an emotion of that's biased. So they'll feel like that's wrong, because while somebody will say evil, someone else will say biased. And in fat acceptance circles, bias is evil. So it has an emotional cord. So she'll say it's not right or wrong, or sorry, they will say it's not right or wrong. But if you act in accordance to this, you're biased, which is emotionally wrong. It is read as wrong, especially to somebody who would have this leaning to even be on this podcast in the first place.
Good fatty stereotype. And all of these like good fatty, bad fatty, they're all in quotation marks because, they're stereotypes. They're just tropes. They're, so a good fatty is more acceptable to society and oftentimes is a safer role to inhabit as a fat person. Frequently pitied, encouraged, and celebrated for the weight they've lost or the journey they're on to lose weight. Good fatties are seen as more productive members of society and excellent tools for capitalism. Seen as morally superior to bad fat people. Can be looked down upon by others for still investing in diet culture and fat phobia. So the things that they might engage in is diets, is actively trying to lose weight, eats quote unquote healthy food in public or eats small amounts of food, works out, can be an athlete and able-bodied.
So what? If you work out, then you're okay. As far as dieting, I don't know. I guess I could see it from their perspective. But in reality, which is where I live, just because you're doing a diet doesn't mean you're going to get approval. In fact, if you choose a certain diet, it can be polarizing. And a lot of people can say you're horrible for doing it or actually give you hate for doing it. I've gotten a lot of criticism on this channel for saying that the only limitation I really have in my diet, well, not the only one, but the major limitation I have in my diet is I do not consume seed oils or soy. And when I say that, a lot of people get upset that I say that. I just want you guys to understand, and I want them to understand that just because you're dieting doesn't mean you're going to get any approval from anybody. We all know a vegan, we all know a keto, we all know pretty much any kind of diet has been criticized by people. And when you're a fat person, one of the most automatic things that people will say is, you don't know what you're doing, or that isn't working. Or if people just have a bias, which I will say, like for example, if they're vegan and you are not eating vegan as a fat person, they will say you are fat because you're not vegan. And then they'll be upset with you that you're eating that way. So it's the same thing, although to a lesser extent, with keto people. Well, you're fat because you're eating so many carbs, or you're fat because of this or that or the other. So just being on a diet is not going to get you any approval. What are the other ones?
They're all in quotation marks because, they're stereotypes. They're just tropes. Works out. Can be looked down upon by others.
Hold on, I need to break this down.
Learn fat phobia and examine our biases. So, what is the quote unquote good fatty stereotype?
I'm gonna try to pause
and all
it.
of these like good fatty, bad fatty, they're all in quotation marks because they're stereotypes. They're just tropes. They're so a good fatty is more acceptable to society and oftentimes is a safer role to inhabit as a fat. Things that they might engage in is diets.
Okay, we covered that one.
Is actively trying to lose weight.
So if somebody is super morbidly obese, if somebody has health issues that are directly tied to their weight, then that means that they are playing into something if they choose to try to become healthier. So I would say in today's society, especially with fat acceptance, in especially the United States, which is what I will speak upon because I live here, if you say that you're losing weight, probably around half of the people in the room are going to tell you you shouldn't, that you don't have to, that you're fine just the way you are, that you shouldn't hate yourself, that you shouldn't do it because it's not going to work, that you're going to just gain it all back and then some more, all this stuff. So is that somebody getting more approval, or is that somebody being a good fat in the world? If around half of people, especially in certain circles, imagine if I was in a university and I said, I'm going to lose weight. Half of those people are probably fat activists, loony, whatever. Like if I was with a group of professors, you bet that at least half of the professors would tell me that I was troubled for trying to lose weight, or they would massively judge me because they would believe someone like this person. It's ridiculous.
Eats, quote unquote, healthy food in public or eats small amounts of food.
So somebody that performs eating a certain way in public, that would be kind of ED coded. So that's more of an ED. If you feel like you have to hide what you're eating, that's not a good sign. Okay? It's a bad sign. So, and it's usually for a reason. I don't hide what I eat in public. I don't care. But whatever.
Works out. Can be
somebody who works out. That is a very, very general thing. So that would be a lot of people in fat activism that act like working out is so amazing. So I guess you're calling a lot of fat activists good fats. All right.
Be an athlete and able-bodied. Is fashion forward and adheres to gender norms. The first to make jokes about their body.
Adheres to gender norms, is fashion forward. Okay, well then I guess I'm automatically a bad fat, aren't I?
Size, the funny fat friend. Is outwardly fatphobic and dislikes fat bodies, especially their own.
Ooh, sassy. I don't know. I feel like if you were a fat person and you hated on fat people's bodies, you probably would be criticized a lot. So I don't really agree with this list at all. I feel like a lot of these things are like mines of death as a fat person. So I would not do that.
Says,
if I was trying to be liked.
I'm fat, but I'm healthy. Has a, quote,
okay, well, I guess I'm a bad fat then.
Reason for being fat that is seemingly, quote, not their fault. Hourglass shaped.
What? This is so ridiculous. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so moving on to the bad fatty stereotype. A bad fatty is way less acceptable to society and is often an unsafe role to inhabit as a fat person.
They say I did something bad, and I'm feeling quite unsafe.
Met with...
Oops, I forgot my headphones. I was too slick there. You hold on, you guys. That was a smooth transition. I don't care what you say.
Anger, disgust, disdain, and ridiculed works out. Can be an unsafe role to inhabit as a fat person.
I think a lot of them would say I'm unsafe.
Met with anger, disgust.
Ooh, anger. Ooh, disgust. Two of my favorite emotions.
Disdain and ridiculed by...
Ooh, disdain. That one's a good one too.
Many. Bad fatties are seen as less productive members of society and therefore less valuable. Judged as morally inferior. Celebrated by others.
Definitely have been judged that way by fat activists.
Others for being, quote unquote, brave.
What?
Met with anger, disgust, disdain, and...
We're met with those? A little bit less, but I like to give it back.
Ridiculed by many. Bad fatties are seen as less productive members of society and therefore less valuable. judged as morally inferior, celebrated by others for being quote unquote brave.
I've been told I'm brave a lot by you guys.
Things that bad fatties do: eat.
Shame others? No, I'm just kidding. That's not what she's going to say. They are going to say.
Food perceived as unhealthy, potentially in public and on social media.
Ooh, I've eaten Peeps a lot. They say I did something bad. Then why does it feel so good? I cannot sing right now, so just shut it. Shut your mouths. All of you. They're burning all the witches, even if you aren't one. But I am, so I don't care. So light me up. Light me up. Okay, anyways.
Wears clothes that have been deemed unflattering and show...
Definitely have worn unflattering clothing. Many a time in my life, especially when the unhealthiness of my obesity / hypothyroidism led to me losing all sense of style and a sense of matching colors and color theory. It was devastating when I came out of that and I had to throw away half my closet. By the way, that happened around this day. Almost exactly. I think it was like early November, maybe the 3rd. I think it was the day after. And I was like, I don't know how I remember that. I must be crazy, but I literally threw everything out of my closet. Like around there. It was around there. I might not have it exact, but it was in November.
With their body.
So I was definitely wearing unflattering clothing at this time.
Likes being fat and celebrates size diversity.
That's not me.
Is not trying to lose weight.
Ooh, I wasn't at this time. Ooh, someone was really a bad one. Ooh, especially in 2021 when I wasn't trying to lose weight because I had to do some ED recovery. I had to do some hypothyroid recovery before losing weight. So I was a really bad one, you guys. Really bad.
Discussed an acceptable reason, quote, for being fat, disabled, unhealthy, not adhering to gender norms.
I was definitely unhealthy, and I did not adhere to gender norms.
Or masculinity in appearance. Doesn't talk about their health status as a reason why they have more or less value, not an hourglass shape.
These are the most random things, I swear. I don't even know how I would categorize myself out of that because I guess I'd be both, you know. Both or neither, I guess. I don't know.
It's absolutely okay to be or to do or be any of the items on the lists intentionally or unintentionally. Neither make you better or worse. The good fatty, bad fatty dichotomy is made of stereotypes. No one fat person's experience is the same. Where it becomes problematic is when we use the, quote, good fatty trope as a reason to discriminate against people who don't adhere to it. In understanding the good fatty, bad fatty dichotomy, we also need to examine the factors that other...
Is this Vinny trying to explain why it's not wrong or right, but then proceed to explain why it's wrong or right? Okay.
Systems of oppression play. Racism, transphobia, ageism, ableism, healthism, and sexism, to name a few. The reality...
What does that have to do with being fat?
Is that all fat people deserve basic human respect, equal access and acceptance no matter.
Even the good ones?
What? Okay, so that's the thingamajig that I wrote. And I'm going to...
It was horrible.
Everything, show notes, fitnessvalley.com/103 or 4.
It was horrid. It wasn't good at all, and it made no sense.
/podcast, if you can't remember the number. So if you're struggling to get to a place of loving your body, it may be because you're scared, rightfully so, of being seen as a quote-unquote bad fatty or letting go of your good fatty identity.
I have no issue being seen as a bad fatty. I have many a time. many a time. I could even wear my hat like this. I have been seen as bad many times in my life, and trust me, I don't care.
So much easier, isn't it? Isn't it so much easier to try and make yourself as palatable to society?
Oh, it's really not. It's not easier because some of us have very strong identities and very strong feelings. And so it's actually not easier. I would say it's easier to not please others at all. For me, anyway. I think that it's really, really subjective to say what is easy and what isn't.
Whatever that looks like, or perhaps it's not intentional, right? Because you could just be a healthy fat person and that's just who you are, right? You just happen to be a healthy fat person.
Doesn't exist.
And so that's like an unearned privilege.
It's not real.
Or you could value health and so engage in health.
Heaven forbid.
Promoting activities.
Ooh, that's a huge no, isn't it?
While also understanding that health is mostly not in our control. And so you just happen to fall into that category of good fatty.
Mostly not in our control. If I choose to drink bleach, would that be unhealthy? Would that be in my control? If I choose to sleep outside when it's below 0 with no protection at all, would that be unhealthy? And by the same token, if I choose to live an incredibly sedentary lifestyle, would that be unhealthy? Maybe it would. Just maybe.
And that's an easier place to exist versus if you were a fat person and you said, you know what, I'm just not interested in dressing in a certain way, like dressing to appear as feminine or masculine.
That has nothing to do with being fat. So this is really stupid.
In the right way, or I'm just not interested in running a half marathon on a Sunday. I'm just not in.
There's plenty of thin people that don't want to run a half marathon. This has nothing to do with being fat, in my opinion.
Interested in only eating salad. I'm just.
Almost nobody eats only salad, so that doesn't make sense, and that's really hyperbolistic, which, by the way, you guys love that word, and I hate that I just said it again. It's the witch hat. It gets me. It gets me. I just need to talk like this for the rest of the video.
Interested in living my life. Which is seen as...
Oh gosh, you could never live your life without food, right? Without whatever food you want at all moments and all times, you know? I will say that equating eating whatever you want with living life, whatever you want all the time with no limits with living life, I would say that that's kind of sad. At this point in my life, I would think that that's kind of sad. Remember, you guys, I always advocate for healthy limits. So not over restriction, not under restriction either. So, I don't know. I could just tell where they were going with that. And it's like when I hear somebody like them say that, I think of somebody who's just binging and then saying, I'm living my life. It's horrible.
Bad, because it's almost like society wants fat people to be apologetic, right? If you're fat, you better fucking apologize for it.
I don't think I have ever apologized to anyone else for it. I think I've had to apologize to myself for it. I've had to apologize to myself for what I've done to my body. But again, not every person that loses weight is a people pleaser. We're not all pathological people pleasers. Some of us are, argumentative, antithetical dream girls. Okay? That's me. Period.
With the way that you behave. You better be sorry. You better be sorry.
You better be sorry. I think you should be sorry.
And to show us that you're sorry for your failing, you better be on a diet. You better be.
Okay, I don't know who talks to people like that. I don't think I've ever been talked to that way. I mean, I don't even know, you guys. I don't think there's anything wrong with caring about somebody's health that you love and like wanting them to live a long life or as long as possible, wanting them to be around, wanting them to have a higher quality of life. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, if you're going to have like a shame, you guys know I don't support that. I don't. And I criticize that trope a lot because especially in the case of ED, it is extremely unhelpful. As I told you guys, it reinforces the behavior. It reinforces it because somebody will use that shame to distract themselves from other anxiety. So it makes it worse. So if you actually care, you wouldn't use that, in my opinion. But you still have to bring it up sometimes. Because sometimes it is worse to not bring it up. But always, always, always advocate for, very reasonable, the least restrictive diets possible, slowest and steadiest weight loss possible, all these different things, just in case the person has an ED. Always say, like, you really don't have to even do that much. Just, try to lose like half a pound a week. Like, say these kinds of things. Maybe even just track your calories for a while and just see where you're at. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think putting tons and tons of pressure is a good thing. But I do think like just saying, hey, it's possible. You can do it. Even if it's slow, it doesn't matter. There's no judgment on if it takes a while. Those kind of things, like calming statements about it, are helpful. But just ignoring the issue entirely is not helpful.
Be making jokes about how unattractive you are, so that we feel comfortable in your presence.
There are a lot of people that make jokes about if they're unattractive or not, and that's their sense of humor. And maybe they like to do that. Maybe they don't. It doesn't really matter. That's somebody's personal choice.
Know that you know your place. It's all about power, right?
I think that there have been situations where I feel like I've been told as a fat person, kind of like, what's the word? I keep missing that word. But there's been like a sort of suggestion or subliminal message that I should know my place as a fat person. I would say, though, that really has not happened in a long time. I think society has changed a lot since the 2000s. That's a very 2000s-y thing, to be like, you should know your place as a fat person, It just doesn't really happen anymore. Now, I think Vinny is in the UK or England, so maybe it's different there, but here in America, that hasn't happened in quite a long time. And I choose not to live 15 years in the past. Okay. I will say that I don't support that. I think that kind of attitude of you should know your place, that reinforces ED in people that have BED. So I don't support it. And if you feel like you have to stay in your place, I would be careful about that attitude, because it's not a good attitude to have. You're still a human being. You're always a human being at the end of the day. And with human beings, nobody really is better or worse than you, in general at least. So it's like maybe someone else doesn't struggle with an ED. They probably struggle in a different way. So you shouldn't feel like a worthless person or like you have nothing going for you whatsoever because you struggle in this way. Because everybody struggles. And I think it's important to keep that perspective because we need to not lose our empathy either. So, yeah, I think regardless, get over yourself because then you can be helpful to other people. And also you won't be as self-hating, which is really important.
Because a fat person in society has less power than a straight-sized person.
I can't even entertain that. Or let's move on.
And how dare a fat person not be in their place? How dare a fat person not live with shame? And so it's great if we can just live our lives. But also it's very difficult because you're kind of shining a light on yourself. It's less safe. A lot of people, though, decide that they are not going to act in a certain way for the comfort of others. This is a quote I say all the time.
That's me. It's me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm having a Taylor Swift moment today. But I will say that I'm the albatross and you're in terrible danger. I'm the life you chose in all this terrible danger, period. I'm just kidding. She didn't say period in the song, but I say it in my version, okay? That's Alex's version.
What's more important, other people's comfort or your own mental well-being? And so...
definitely my own physical and mental well-being. So I will definitely stomp all over a fat activist's comfort if ever necessary, quickly, with a swiftness.
Some people, they say other people's comfort because that's also tied up with my mental well-being, because if people are judging me, I don't feel good. But some people will kind of reframe it and, have the privilege to be able to do things which people see as bad fatty behavior. The reality is everyone's different, right? Most fat people don't fall neatly into good fatty or bad fatty. I
did something bad, period. I'm a bad fatty. I'm owning it.
Even someone like me who would be kind of, people would think as a bad fatty, I would fall into a lot of...
I think you're a good fatty because you do a lot of virtue signaling. A lot. They even tried to say that a mullet is the best haircut in the history of the 20th century or something. They were trying to virtue signal to Gen Z. I cut that part out because, again, Vinny went on forever. So I had to cut some of it out. It was going on for too long. But I will say, you seem to be doing lots of virtue signaling, Vinny. I think thou doth protesteth too mucheth. Thou is a good fatty. And I am the bad, the dangerous fatty.
Kind of good fatty stereotypes, just because of, genetic luck, for example. So I would say I'm not exactly hourglass, but I would say I'm kind of getting close to having an hourglass figure. And so
the fact that you even care makes you a good fatty. Good fatty, good fatty. I don't even consider it. Get on my level.
So that would be seen as being a good fatty. I enjoy fashion, and so that would also be being seen as a good fatty. I guess that I'm
No, it would be seen as just you're what everybody expects you to be because you're a good fatty. because you're going to say whatever you think the most people will like and blah, 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 blah. Because you care about your in-group and whatever. I don't.
Healthy in regards to, like, I say that, but it's just, you know, health. Like, what is health? We've talked about it on the podcast.
A lot of these people would rather die than have an independent thought.
What is health? Is like, health is a social construct, and
tell that to somebody who hasn't struggled with health. Jeez.
I guess the health in regards to the stereotypical types of things that people will abuse fat people with, saying you're going to get type 2 diabetes, you're going to get heart disease, you're going to get la 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 la. So
is it abuse or is it truth?
I would then fall into the good fatty stereotype. So, you know, so it doesn't mean, just to reiterate, it doesn't mean that you're good or bad. This is how society is.
You only say that because you're a good fatty. If you felt like you're a bad fatty, then you'd be judging the good fatties.
Viewing fat people, and it's problematic. It's not helpful. It's hard.
I actually like it. I'm owning it. Consider this video my coming out as a bad fatty. Okay?
Harmful to view fat people like this as good or bad, depending on their behavior, right? And to recognize
my behaviors are very evil by your standard. I assure you of that.
That sometimes we engage in these things, in good fatty type behaviors, to be safe, because it's so fucking hard to live in the world that hates fat people. Oh my gosh.
It's so safe. It's so safe to live without my EG. It's so safe to be willing to have my identity change. It's so safe to be willing to have my body change. Gosh, you guys, I can't think of something more safe than what I've been doing. It's so safe, you guys. It's so safe. I've never felt safer in my life.
So I love this piece from Stacy Bias, which is so good. The 12 Good Fatty Archetypes. It's a comic blog post, and it's available as a zine. stacybias.net. And so this is Stacy did this in 2014. Oh my gosh. 2014, like it was just yesterday, and now it's how many years ago? Like whatever, 75 years ago. So the Good Fatty Examined is how it starts. So the post is 12 Good Fatty Archetypes by Stacy Bias, and I'm going to read some of this out. It's a like comic. I just fucking love that. I studied illustration, so anything visual like this, I'm just like, oh, I just fucking love it. Okay, so the Good Fatty Examined. Stacy says, there has been a lot of talk lately on fat acceptance blogs about what it means to be a, quote, good fatty. It seems to me that there are a lot of different kinds of good fatties, and each one serves its own kind of purpose. So what does it mean to be a good fatty? This part gets wordy, but stick with me. The general consensus is a good fatty is a fatty who is trying, or at least believes they should be trying, to no longer be a fatty. That's a reasonable definition.
For any reason at all. That's a very, very simplistic definition
Of one kind of good fatty. But before we can understand what it means to be a good fatty,
comment you guys down below what kind of good fatty you are, if you are one, or what kind of bad fatty. Let me know. And if you're not fat, then tell me if you're good or bad. Okay?
we first have
Oh.
to figure out what a bad fatty is and how they came to be seen as bad in the first place. Like most bad ideas, it starts with money and morality.
I was created as a villain in a very specific way. So we'll see if they can figure it out.
So, capitalism requires productivity.
Okay, this is the dumbest argument already.
Therefore, a productive body is seen to be one that produces and reproduces,
but not one that consumes.
Fit, able, and, quote, desirable. So any given society is basically just a collection of people who agree with each other about certain things. Those beliefs are standardized, but constantly shifting, and those who conform to them are included.
And no one could ever conform to fat acceptance dogma, right?
Those who don't are not. The basis for these beliefs is called morality. And
fat acceptance has no morality whatsoever, right?
Moral order to any society. In Western societies, because we're mainly capitalist and intent on increasing wealth, morality is most concerned with maintaining productivity.
But not consuming. Okay.
For that reason, there is a mandate for self-sacrifice and for caring for our bodies in a way that maintains their
in a way that would make corporations less money and big pharma less money. Doesn't make sense.
Productive and reproductive potential.
I'm sorry if I'm talking quietly.
So basically, we are meant to be strong, able-bodied, heterosexual, and sexually desirable.
Oh gosh, I've really failed that one. Sexually desirable, you'd have to ask. It depends on who you're asking, I guess. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but we're going to go with it, okay?
Folks who don't conform to any or all of the above have stigmatized identities and are even denied rights. Stacy continues.
Denied rights based on being fat. Citation needed.
Segregation and aspiration.
Segregation. Oops, I just totally messed that up. Oh my gosh. Segregation based on fatness. Hold on, I'm going to find my place again.
You can imagine society as a large circle with several smaller circles inside of it. At the core are the most privileged with the most power.
Even Vinny was like, this seems like BS. But then they kept reading.
Who benefit the most from maintaining societal inequalities. The further away you get from the core, the less power and privilege you have. So when I talk later about arguing for...
Notice the moral undertones of power and privilege in this conversation. So this is a heavily, heavily moralized conversation. Okay.
Social legitimacy, what I am referring to is a fight to be seen as included in one of the many spheres of acceptability in any given society. For the most part, each good fatty...
I don't understand why they assume that everyone cares. I do not care how acceptable I am. I really, 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 really fucking don't. Period. Okay? Not everyone is like you guys. Not everyone is like y'all. Get over it. I don't care. I really don't. But by the same token, I actually don't care, which means that I'm not going to just rebel for the sake of rebelling, because that is equally being controlled by societal expectation. I just am what I am. And guess what? Sometimes it can change. Like losing weight. That's a change. I can change. I know, it's so dangerous, you guys. It's so dangerous.
Archetype that exists is basically an argument for justification for inclusion in society's spheres of privilege. If good fatties exist, then not all fatties are bad, and therefore we can't ethically be excluded from society. The problem is, whenever you define something as good, you're automatically defining it in opposition to something else. So the good fatty creates the bad fatty, who then gets thrown under.
I would say that's the case with fat acceptance, and I will gladly be the bad fatty.
Under the bus.
And I will gladly be thrown under the bus by you because I don't give a shit.
This blog is basically taking a look at the 12 good fatty archetypes and asking some questions about how we might use them more critically. So a caveat that Stacy says that this is an intentional oversimplification, is also intentionally using stereotype in order to create archetypes. So I'm just going to quickly read the 12 archetypes. Isn't that so fucking interesting? Isn't it? So I am just so into
let me know what type you guys are if you want to say.
Learning more about capitalism right now and anti-work. There's a Twitter thread. What is it called? Something like no work or don't work or something like that.
Okay, then go home. Stop. I'll help you. Stop doing this. Go home, shut the fuck up, and don't work. Okay? I would love it if you stopped working. Go ahead and stop right now. I challenge you to. Okay?
Where people are standing up to their bosses and quitting their jobs.
Okay, go ahead and quit. I hope that you quit this. That would be great.
Sharing the post. It's so satisfying.
It'd be even more satisfying if you quit.
You know, like they'll get a text from a boss. They get a text from a boss at 3 a.m. being like, excuse me, you were coming in tomorrow at 5 a.m. And the person is like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't know, I'm getting heart surgery tomorrow. And their boss will be like,
I would support any of you for quitting fat acceptance. I would celebrate it so much. So much.
No, I don't think so. You better come in or there'll be trouble. And then the person says, I really can't, but maybe I can come in the afternoon. And the boss says, you better. And then the person says, do you know what? Go fuck yourself. I quit. And it's so satisfying. Obviously, this is...
Yes, it's quite satisfying to quit fat acceptance.
So fucked up that people are having to do this, and a lot of times it's people who are in low pay.
I will say for me, it's very satisfying to defy what you want.
Jobs who don't have that financial security, but then they're getting to a point where they're so deeply mistreated and the system of capitalism is so harmful to them that they're having to risk not being able to pay their bills and everything that comes with that. But saying all that, it's still like so exciting and dismantling capitalism.
Yes, you love encouraging other people to do self-destructive things. I get it. That's very clear to me.
Capitalism is so cool. Anyway, so the 12 archetypes is the fat unicorn. So the fat unicorn is they're fat, but they engage in none of the typical behaviors assigned to fat people. So they eat healthily, they daily exercise, they have perfect lab reports. So that is the fat unicorn. So the kind of like, how is it possible that they are healthy? Oh my God, they are a unicorn. Okay, next one is...
I feel like I've been that one before when I was in my ED.
The fathlete, the fat athlete, otherwise known as the exceptional fatty. So this is the the person who is strong, or who is a dancer, or who is does marathons. So that's the second one.
Okay. I don't think that was ever me, but I am very active now, so I'd be closest to that now.
Next one is the work in progress.
Oh, that one I think probably would be me right now too, but that's a very BEG coded too.
And Stacy says this is a fatty in the process of becoming not a fatty. So someone who is doing the diets, doing the stomach squeezing, the stomach amputation, whatever it is. Next one is the real woman. So this is the heroine of the Dove beauty campaigns. See, she is oppositional to the stick-thin fashion model, often described as supple or voluptuous, and may even have a cheeky fat roll or two. Maligned by the fashion industry that considers her, quote-unquote, fat.
Are they eating themselves now?
She is proposed as merely normal. So that would be kind of, you remember I did a podcast episode about the mid-size thing. So this would be like fat people who are basically not fat. Okay, so the fat celebrity, also known as the ambassadors of fatness. Gabourey Sidibe, Jack Black, Adele, Rebel Wilson. Okay, yeah. Sad face. Adele, Rebel Wilson. We have to scratch those out.
If it doesn't matter, then why do you care?
Beth Ditto. These are the ambassadors of fatness whose extraordinary artistry or performance skills create them as an exception to the general rules of social exclusion. So they're included because they've got talent. They give us something, right? They serve a purpose. They entertain us. They make us laugh. Next one is...
I think that they always think that every thin person is valued by everyone, and that's just not true. I can assure you guys, I do not have that impression, and I'm not expecting everything ever to change upon weight loss or whatever. I don't hold that in my mind. I think for me, I'm surprised when anything changes. I'm like the opposite. But anyways.
The mama hen. The maternal fat body. So the stereotype of maternality. That's a funny word, isn't it? Maternality. I almost want to say maternity, but it's not maternity. Anyway, the stereotype for maternality places women's fat bodies outside or past the process of reproduction, or outside of the male gaze, non-sexualized and non-threatening. Yeah, so the mama hen is, I'm too old to reproduce, therefore I don't have that burden to be seen as sexually attractive because I can no longer reproduce, so I can't contribute to that capitalist expectation, and so I'm non-threatening.
Having children is a capitalist expectation. That is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life.
Threatening, and I'll give you a nice hug and make you food.
Dumb.
The next one is the big man, so the powerful man, metaphorically and physically. So this is the protector, the bear, the beast, the strong man, the clown. And sometimes is the unlikely hero. So think about Paul Blart. Remember that actor, the mall cop or whatever? And sometimes sweet and vulnerable good guy. Consider Homer Simpson.
I think I'm definitely a bad fat.
Yeah. Also, they say the big man is often associated with class. Okay, so the no-fault fatty or the hapless fatty. So this is someone who has a... They are fatties for a reason beyond their control. Irreversible fatness rooted in other conditions, example PCOS, or necessary treatment for other ailments like steroids or antidepressants. So it's not their fault that they're fat. All of this in big quotations, right? Stacy says, I know, I'm sorry, this one is morbid. So the next one is the dead early fatty. And so Stacy says, but we're talking about all kinds of good fatties, and we're discussing what purposes they serve. And in service of the medical and pharmaceutical industry, to put it bluntly, there's no better fatty than a dead one. Each fat individual...
That's your attitude in fat acceptance, because that's where your rhetoric leaves fat people. That's where it leads the fatties to, is an early death. So that would be what you feel.
Whose death conforms to their quote unquote obesity doom prophecies can then be enveloped into another set of statistical warnings, offering more opportunities to justify social and financial exclusions, to fund research and product development, and to create oppressive legislation. Next, the natural fatty. She's on the right track, baby. She was born this way. The natural fatty is fat
ED.
Due solely to genetics. This
ED.
fatty is basically the same as a fat unicorn, but is talked about a bit differently within activism. Fatness in this case
It's a lie.
constitutes a natural kind, one of a myriad
It's a lie.
possible and inevitable
Delusion.
human forms existing along a spectrum of natural human diversity.
I have BED, but I don't want to talk about it, so I'm going to say that I'm a natural fat person. That's what it is. It's a bait and switch. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about me. Don't talk about me. Don't talk about what I'm doing. That's what that is.
Backed by medical studies. So, someone who's just like, oh, they're just naturally fat, you know. Next one is a fashionista, the fashionable fatty. So those within a specific
fashionista? Wow.
size range and body shape with financial resources, sewing skills, and or on trend clothing available in their size. Okay.
This is becoming more so like, what type of fat activist are you? I think to be a good fat, you have to be a fat activist. That's what I would say.
The rad fatty, aka the fierce fatty. Oh, look at this, the fierce fatty. The feisty fatty, the uppity fatty. The rad fatty is the ultimate rejecter of stigma, appropriating stigmatizing terms and turning them on their head, refusing conformance on every level.
I'm definitely a bad fat. I think I'm realizing this further and further.
So I'm going to read all of this because this is really interesting. So, refusing conformance on every level and often engaging in performative displays of
Not me.
behaviors that are discouraged in or considered stereotypical of
Not me.
fat people, but with intention and a tone of rebellion. The rad fatty has a strong fat politic, has likely been involved in activism. Some
They like this one because this is them.
have attended higher education institutions and have an academic understanding of sizeism, while others have undergone a process of self and or community education to gain their knowledge and insight. The rad in the rad fatty means radical, as well as just rad, e.g. awesome, cool, fierce, etc., and speaks to a commitment to undoing oppression, not only in their own lives but in the society. There is a high value placed on political knowledge, appropriate language, and that fierceness that comes along with an active rejection of stigma and having learned to love and appreciate the self. Okay, so for each one of these, there's like questions to ask, so kind of we can go in deeper. And the conclusion here that Stacy makes is the good fatty is a complex subject, and each seeks legitimacy in its own way and from its own target audience. But where we create one inclusion, we often create or reinforce other exclusions. It's important to be aware of where and how.
So just give up entirely.
Seek social capital and who we leave behind. When
Stop trying to be a good fatty. It doesn't matter. Trust me. You can come to the dark side. We welcome you. We will welcome you with open arms. Just quit fat acceptance. It's going to be fine. It'll be totally fine. I promise. Be dangerous. Be wild.
That said, I'll take a moment to reinforce what I said at the beginning. There is nothing wrong with falling into, or even many of these archetypes. Sometimes I use fashion to make myself feel safer as I walk through the world. Sometimes I get overwhelmed and fall back into old dieting behaviors. Sometimes I strive to embody that fierceness I admire so much in other rad fatties. Again, where the good fatty becomes problematic is when it's used as a justification for social legitimacy. When it says, I deserve to be seen as valuable because, insert good fatty qualifier here. We all deserve to be seen as valuable wherever we're at in our...
Even those that disagree with you? Really? Really? Wow. Wow, I haven't seen that. You guys might want to work on that one.
Individual journeys with our bodies, our self-esteem, or our politics. Leave no fatty behind. Yeah, so one of the points...
Even the ones who disagree with you? What? Even the bad ones. Even the bad ones.
Points that I made in the good fatty is can be looked down upon by others for still investing in diet culture and fat phobia. So that's one thing that we want to try and avoid, especially like with that last one, that kind of the rad fatty, is a lot of people listening to the podcast, if you've listened to more than, 20 episodes, you're probably pretty well versed in a lot of fat topics and are probably not dieting or unlearning dieting, unlearning fat phobia. And to look at other people who are not there yet and think, oh, they're stupid. How can they believe that? I can't believe it. They're perpetuating...
You mean the bad ones?
Harm. And yes, they're perpetuating harm.
They're bad. We're bad. Light me up. Period.
And they were us just recently, and they deserve love and acceptance. And
yes, you have to accept me because you're good. So you have to. You have to.
Equal access and everything, right? Leave no...
Equal ability to share my rhetoric? Absolutely, you have to. You have to.
Fatty behind. And so, it's like that episode I did a little while ago about, what's her face? Rebel Wilson. And being mad about Rebel Wilson, which isn't totally legitimate. And...
Is it? Okay.
Being frustrated that Rebel has been caught up in being a good fatty. Really, that's...
Really a bad one.
What it is Rebel is trying to be...
She's bad.
Seen as a good fatty.
Bad. Evil.
Now, where it becomes problematic is exactly what...
She's problematic. Burn her. Burn her. Burn the witch. Burn her.
Stacy bias is saying is that when you're pitting one against the other. And so the thing with Rebel Wilson, which gets on people's tits, is if Rebel Wilson wants to be a good fatty, go ahead. And
a bad one.
I think a lot of people are frustrated that the throwing under the bus thing. Rebel Wilson using that social legitimacy, saying, you can do it too. It's not too late for you to become healthy. Throwing the, quote, bad fatties under the bus. And as well, we don't want to do the opposite. We don't want to be throwing, quote unquote, good fatties under the bus either. But again, recognizing the good fatties, quote unquote, it's all stereotypes, or, here's everything as a good fatty. The good fatties are the ones who are positioning themselves as closer to power. Which again is...
Don't we all love power though? I know I do.
is
power. Don't hold on to the ring of power that is weight loss. It's evil, you guys. It's evil.
Is about safety and surviving in society. And so we have to consider all sides of it. So it's a really nuanced conversation, lots of different sides. But
no, it just doesn't make any sense. But you just can say that it's nuanced. It doesn't make any sense.
Again, please don't feel bad if you engage in any behaviors.
I don't.
But if you do want to, if you do realize that you might be engaging in behaviors that aren't helpful, for example, I see a lot of people say, I'm fat, but I'm healthy. oh, you know,
Well, I should be the best fat person ever then, because I say how unhealthy I am all the time.
Dave over there, he's fat, but, you know, he works out.
Well, technically, I'd be the worst fatty.
And so it's saying, oh, but you're one of the acceptable ones. You don't have to say that to be...
You don't have to be a people pleaser if you're fat, I promise. It's going to be okay. I promise you. Do not use that as a drive to stay in an ED, please. You will survive. I promise.
Legitimate, you know? You don't have to.
You can be bad. It's okay.
It doesn't matter if someone is fat and unhealthy. It doesn't matter if someone has a reason for being fat. It doesn't matter, you know, all of the things that we're talking about. That is not a condition for love and respect and all of those things. It shouldn't be. Often it is.
They say I did something bad. Then why does it feel so good? I don't know. It feels so good to be bad.
But then if you are buying into that by repeating these unhelpful archetypes, stereotypes, tropes, we want to avoid doing that, right? We want to avoid saying, oh, it's okay because I'm healthy, or it's okay because they're healthy. But
why don't we just try to live in truth and not care if we're living in a stereotype or not? This is just stupid all around. Why don't we not consider it at all?
Okay because they're trying to lose weight. Oh, but it's okay because but that's where it can get problematic. I want to share with you a post from Everyday Feminism written by Marie Souther-Despina.
It looks like we're going to get through the whole thing, you guys. So thank you so much if you guys are making it through. I appreciate you so much.
And the post is 9 ways to defy the good fatty trope. So if you do want to do some...
Let's see what they say. Are they actually telling us to be a bad fatty, or are they just telling us to be a good fatty in a covert way? I'll be the judge of that.
Defying. If you do want to do...
I love defying.
You know, some... fucking up the norms and the rules.
I love fucking up the norms and the rules. It's my favorite thing in the world.
And all that type of stuff. Then here are 9 ways. I'm just going to read out the headlines, and if you want to continue reading, you can. Wear something that magazines once told you was reserved for others. 2, don't feel...
Why would I care what a magazine says?
...pressured to turn yourself into an hourglass. 3,
okay, well, I'm not.
ask yourself why you want to post that workout selfie or kale salad.
To brag about it.
Snap. 4, don't edit your cellulite stretch marks.
I wouldn't post a kale snap, though, because I'm not a kale girly pop.
Or double chin out of your photos. 5, in fact,
double chin is fading. I'm not as moony today.
share full-figured snaps on social media. Yes, including dating profiles. 6, reiterate that you can be fat and beautiful at the same time.
I've done this. I guess I am a bad fat. Damn.
7, point out and be critical of fat shaming in real life or in
done that too.
Media. 8, remind yourself that you don't need excuses.
What?
9, be loud.
That is introvert hate. Let's not discriminate against the introverts of the world. Hater.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I think that number 8 one, remind yourself that you don't need excuses.
That doesn't make sense. Excuses for what?
And remind yourself that if you do feel like you need to give people excuses, then it makes sense. It makes sense.
What?
If that's a way to keep yourself safe, then that's a way to keep yourself safe, right? But there are some ideas for if you do want to defy the good fatty trope. So
They say I did something bad.
no matter how or what way you're choosing to try and survive in this fat phobic world is fine, is a-okay. Know that you don't have to do certain things if you don't want to do. If you
You mean I don't have to stay fat? Okay. I won't.
don't want to, like, if you
I don't have to stay fat.
but engaging in certain behaviors to be seen as a good fatty, but actually you hate it. Or
I don't have to stay fat. And neither do you. You heard it.
or
Straight out of Vinny's mouth. You don't have to stay fat.
opposite, engaging in certain behaviors to be a bad fatty, but you're not into it. You don't have to do anything, right? Do what feels good to you.
Thank you for your permission, but as a bad fatty, I don't care what you think or say.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Your questions? Wish you could tell me what you. I wish you could tell me what your questions were so I could answer them for you.
I think it was stupid.
What are your questions? I guess you can just send in a hello. If you do have questions.
Okay. We're done. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was fun. Vinny brought out the witch. Okay. And it was a reputation witch, which is even worse. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if it's worse or not, but it was a reputation witch, period. So I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. And yeah, let me know what you think. See you later. Bye.